Welcome to the SkillRanch. This podcast is designed to equip entrepreneurs, professionals, and consultants with skills to impact tomorrow's work environment. Now here's your host, Bilal.
Hi everyone and welcome to the SkillRanch Podcast. On today's episode, we have Andrew, who is an energetic and passionate guy who offers up wise and unique techniques for managing stress no matter the circumstances one is facing in life. It was not long ago that Andrew escaped a life of anxiety, stress, and depression. It was only after hitting a rock bottom that he made a profound but simple discovery that changed his life and the lives of hundreds of others over the last 5 years. When he escaped the darkness, he grew a passion for helping others escape theirs too. It was in this pursuit of that passion that he found his purpose. Find the people battling stress, anxiety, and depression and offer them a unique and simplified system to help them get back on top. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today, Andrew?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing wonderful. It's a splendid day. It's a rainy day, but it's a good day.
Well, that's lucky. It's quite chilly for us here in Toronto, by the way. A bit unexpected, but nice weather after a long time.
It's been brutal here in like the high 80s, 90s, and 80% humidity. So the rain and a little bit cooler temperature, I'll take it.
Yeah, it's nice. Like everybody had a very tough summer, so hopefully it's easing into a winter and things are becoming nicer.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, for our audience, could you please share a bit about your story, about your self-discovery?
Yeah. So without taking it too far, just early as a child, I dealt with a lot of being not myself at a very young age. My mom started calling me homophobic slurs because she heard me listening to jazz music and Michael Bolton and Boys to Men. So I started to mask who I truly was, and I always was killing off the things that I really enjoyed. Like I liked flowers, and I liked all these beautiful things, and I wanted to say, and I like this type of music, but I kind of masked who I was for a long time. And I was an alligator hunter, and I've had all these really hard, tough. I'm a railroader, and I actually worked for the railroad on the track maintenance department. And I always had to be like this hardcore guy. And it was until I hit rock bottom that I realized that I was hiding who I truly was because I was never comfortable with who I was. So I just really developed trying to figure out what is this comfort thing. And I looked up the definitions, and I never really liked the definitions for it. So my whole philosophy was born all inside of my darkness. And I found very simplified techniques in that darkness that I now teach others.
Yes, like living as someone else's life or living from some other perspective is tough, and it's extremely mentally challenging too. Like there are situations where you seem natural and you would like that kind of an environment, that kind of a personality to flow through. And that is why nowadays one of the soft skill that is becoming very common is being authentic, being who you are as a person. So I would like to take the conversation that you shared your personal crisis that you went through, but we all go through a lot of tough situations in our life, and especially during the pandemic, the number of those situations have increased incredibly. So how can we lead ourselves during such situations?
Yeah. So one of the tools is just, we'll go back to me not knowing who I was and just was picking up right where we was just talking about, is if you don't know who you are, if you're not allowing yourself to enjoy the things that you want to in life, if you don't really spend time listening to your heart and really developing and knowing who you are, because oftentimes we're distracting from our real thoughts. We don't really listen to them because sometimes they're painful. But what happens is if we don't know who we are, we falsely identify targets. When we falsely identify targets, we end up hitting a target and wondering why we aren't happy. And the reason why we're not happy is because that target wasn't from our heart. That target was from our mind of who we think we are being, who we should be. Basically, that's being molded on us from outside pressure, external pressure. But when you're looking at your life, if you're stressed out, it depends on where your level of stress is. And a lot of people don't understand that stress and anxiety are the same exact thing. The way you're experiencing life is let me try to take this down to kind of a science level. When you get in the shower, if you worked for the last 2 days, 16-hour shifts, and you were outside digging ditches, this is the first time you ever dig ditches, and you're doing it by shovel, you are going to be beat, you are going to be dead tired. And you do that for 2 days, and then you get home, you're dirty. And you want to go to bed. That's all you want to do is go to bed, but you're dirty, and you get in the shower. You turn on the shower. The cold water comes and hits your skin. All of a sudden, everybody knows that feeling. Your body has more energy than it just had a second ago. And it has a lot of energy. And it's your brain telling you, hey, I have met a discomfort. Hold on one second, baby. So your brain meets a discomfort, and your brain is saying, hey, you met a discomfort, get away from discomfort and get toward energy, get toward comfort. So it is giving you the energy to get away from discomfort and go toward energy. It doesn't realize it's just cold water touching your skin. See, it recognizes the discomfort itself. It doesn't know if it's a saber-toothed tiger. It doesn't know if it's a lion. It doesn't know if it's a gorilla. All it recognizes is there's a discomfort. So your brain is doing its job. So next time you feel anxiety or you feel stress, be excited because your brain is delivering energy. It's putting it through your body, and you're feeling that electrical impulse. You're being charged up. Your brain's the capacitor. It's just charging your body and getting you ready to remove the discomfort from your life. But here's where the stress and anxiety become at volatile levels, where it just starts to be unhealthy inside of us. Well, first off, we're not recognizing that the stress and anxiety are welcome. These are good things we should be thankful for. But the way we're not using it is, okay, now it's just happening, and we're not expending the energy. We're not putting in the effort to use that energy to remove the discomfort. We're allowing the discomforts to stay around. So the discomforts keep climbing and climbing and climbing, and you'll know that your discomforts are climbing in your life because your brain will wake you up in the middle of the night and say, hey, listen, we need to talk. We got all these discomforts. We got all this energy. I'm giving you all the energy. Why are you not taking care of your job? And then so the stress and anxiety, being that they're the same thing, there is one difference between stress and anxiety. Stress has a target and it has hope. So if somebody's stressed about something, they're not getting anxiety. They're not anxious yet. When they have a target that they got to hit, and when they have hope, that's still stress. But when it becomes anxiety, you have lost a target and you have lost hope.
I see. So anxiety would be when we want to do a thing, let's say today the fresh day, we want to work on a job, we want to work on a personal self or business, but when we sit on the table, we are still having a thought about something that didn't go well yesterday, the day before yesterday, or even a week or month or year ago, something that is there in our mind and that we are unable to cater to what that feeling wanted, maybe a thought around it, so that we can resolve that problem and get that problem out of our brain so that we can focus on things that we have to do today. So I feel anxiety would be something that affects our today because of something that is in the mind that is still left unresolved.
Yes.
And coming to the stress, I kind of recognize the example. Like if somebody is driving in the winter on a snowy road when it is snowing also, stress is a good thing. You need to be careful. You need to ensure that your car is working properly and it's well equipped to face the conditions that are there. And driving carefully, having that stress in the back of the mind would allow us to make better informed decisions. And to your point around anxiety, so anxiety would also relate to distractions. And like in nowadays, we want to see the notification on our mobile phone with social media or any news that is coming up, especially regarding the pandemic. So these are like some of the distractions that happen. But how do we lead ourselves when we have so many distractions in our life, in our personal space as well as on our professional aspect?
So here's here's what I'm going to call that, and I believe that is one of the parts that is breeding the anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Because whenever we're going into an impulsive type situation, usually our impulse is being bred and led by our habits, the addiction problems that we have. And this boy, he told me to stop talking. He has to hear his Mickey. So the anxiety is being caused from the distractions. When we're distracting ourselves, is we're avoiding our discomforts. So that's the reason why we're so distracting ourselves, is because we're avoiding the discomfort or the uncomfortable task in which we need to complete. Oh, well, I got to go put in some effort over here, right? Effort is a discomfort. It's just a good discomfort. That's a type 2 discomfort in my philosophy, where that is good. You want to take on type 2s, but what happens is we'll go distract ourselves so we don't have to take on any discomforts at all. But see, your brain's giving you the energy that it needs to remove the discomforts. It still realizes the discomforts are there. Just because you've stole the attention of your conscious mind doesn't mean your subconscious mind does not still recognize that it's there. It's still sitting there. So you can distract yourself all day long, and distraction becomes an impulse. Distraction becomes an addiction. And because you do get little dopamine hits inside your brain, oxytocin, blah, 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 there's all kind of little dopamine hits that your brain is releasing when you're distracting yourself, or you see this specific type of material. Even scary things or bad things become addictive because they are releasing these endorphins inside your brain, which make you feel good. But ultimately, at the end of the day, those are breeding anxiety, and you have to realize you have to get better. To get better, if you are experiencing anxiety, you have to put yourself in a window in between impulse and distraction. You need to find times to dedicate toward removing stress. So let me explain it like this. You're to removing discomforts. So your body recognizes discomfort. And say if your bladder is full, your brain realizes your bladder is full because your bladder says, hey, I'm uncomfortable. It's sending a signal to your brain that says discomfort. So you run into the house and you start to pee. I hate to use this reference, but everybody's very familiar with this, so I'll use the reference. So as soon as you start peeing, you not at the end, but almost immediately at the beginning, when you really, really have to go, immediately you're like, that's relief. Now, my philosophy is called sudden comfort, and that's the moment that comfort shows up. It shows up all of a sudden, and relief shows up immediately when you start working on the discomforts that are in your life. So it's like you're removing some of the discomfort, so you're gaining more capacity for future, and your brain is happy by that.
Yeah, that made me realize the statement once Paul made, that overwhelmed person is under-purposed. So some of the distractions that do come up into our mind, that might be because our body wants us to work on different things, that they might want us to work on a side hustle, do exercise, spend time with friends, family, or in leisure time, or any other thing, and we are not focusing on those things because we are busy in the main job or one thing that we are doing, and that is keeping ourselves busy. And that also kind of relates and gets us into a mind where we tend to not do anything and we are just lying back. That makes us lazy. We procrastinate also.
Yes.
That is also a kind of a stressful situation too, where you want to do something but then you don't get the energy to do it. How
Yep.
do we overcome that kind of a stress?
Okay, so first off, realize that effort is good. Even when you don't feel like it, your body has the energy. You're just not using your brain in a way that it's giving you the energy, or you're not using it you're not accepting that the fact that discomfort that you feel, which is anxiety and stress, you're not identifying that, hey, look, that is my brain saying I need to move. First off, we need to agree that's something you need to accept, that, hey, that anxiety and that stress, you need to move. Your body is saying, your brain is saying, body, move. You need to put in an effort. But if you don't feel like it, there's an old saying, it says, you can act your way into feeling long before you can feel your way into acting. In other words, you'll never, ever feel like it until you start going. Maybe you go to the gym for a week, and then finally on that 6th or 7th day, you're kind of excited about going. It takes some time. And with all good effort, with all good discomforts, the payoff is at the back end. Well, see, we can go do drugs or smoke a cigarette or drink caffeine, and we can get the high up front. But that's not rewarding you, because that becomes an addiction, because you'll seek that high constantly. But the problem is you relieve your stress in whatever that is, and it creates a whole bunch of other stresses. So now all the discomforts that you're relieving in that one area from that one thing is being created more discomfort. So it's a pressure cooker, and it just keeps pushing you up the discomfort scale. So that's not the way to win. So in having vices in your life, and I'm not judging anybody if you do, and I had a whole bunch of them, and alcohol addictions and tons of addictions, and I'm not judging anybody, but one thing we got to recognize is that there's a different way of getting the same high or getting an even better high. So whenever you put effort in, effort comes first. So just start acting and put in the effort. But here's the cool part. Once you lose the 20 pounds, it feels so good. Example, lady tells me the other day, I feel so effing sexy. Her quote, okay, quote, she's 350 pounds. Here's the deal. She started at 400 pounds and she's killing it. Lost 50 pounds, right? Now, if she went from 300 pounds to 350 pounds, would she still feel sexy? Probably not as much, but she's going on the right way, and she's feeling good about it, and she's hyped up about it. See, that's the high. That's the high you're starting to get. So when the scales are moving in the right way, whether it's your finances, your weight, your goals that you're achieving at work, when they're moving in the right way, that's when you feel good. It's when they're adding up in the wrong way that we start to get that stress and anxiety. And that's just the brain saying, hey, we need to change. You recognize we need to change. I recognize we need to change. I'm giving you the energy. Here's the energy. Why aren't you using it?
Those are great example, but just one thing, that in certain things you do see the change immediately.
No.
And some of the things, the change means 5 years, 10 years down the road. And that is where keeping yourself motivated and persistence and being resilient during tough situations is also a key. And that probably differs from one person to other. It would be a different level for me, different level for you, or any of them from the audience. That was a great example. One thing, Andrew, that I would like you to share with the audience here during initial conversation, you shared something about the news. How do you manage the distractions around television, media, and the news that do come in? Would you like to share that?
Yeah. So another thing I teach is not only the discomfort snowball, in a sense, is what I teach to get out of stress and anxiety, to feel better, get to a happier life. Because when you're putting in the effort and you're actually going in the right way, you're going to be happier than you've ever been in your entire life. Everything's going to be better. When you're putting in the right amount of effort for you, each individual is going to be slightly different. Everybody's capacity is different, right? So your bladder size would be in comparison, right? The amount of discomfort that you can take would be in comparative. Like, say, my sister could only go an hour in a car ride before she had to pull over and use the restroom. My dad, champion of all champions, used to drive me crazy. He'd go like 8-10 hours. I'm like, this is just getting ridiculous at like hour 6, right? So that's your capacity. So what you do is you start to remove the discomforts from your life. Start with the little ones, like if your belt's too tight, if your shoes don't fit, your shoes have holes in them, if you have a long nose hair and you're going into a board meeting and it's just like tickling your face the whole time, it's going to mess with your comfort, your confidence, right? Because without comfort, there is no confidence. And so if you're miserable, and even if you know what you're delivering, what information you're delivering, if you're feeling bad because your pants are tight, your underwear are running up your butt, you have all these different discomforts in your life, it's going to show in your meeting. It's going to show that you are uncomfortable, whatever it is, because as a whole, as a picture, as you're presenting yourself, that's what's coming off. That energy is actually coming off of you. So one of the things is removing the discomfort from your life, but the other one is stop them from coming in. Find out where the discomforts are coming in, and one of them is the news. The news is bringing you, oh my God, so much discomfort. And they win if they create discomfort in you. Because if they put a whole bunch of discomfort in you, what will you do? Immediately after a bad news report, the commercial right behind a bad news report is the most expensive. And it's always an impulse type item, because what we've learned to do is if we meet discomfort in the world right now, what do? We reach for a vice. Oh, I'm sad. I'm going to go get a hamburger from Hardee's, or I'm going to go get a chicken from Fusey, right? So we have that feel discomfort, go toward a medicine or self-medicine, which is like food or our vice or whatever, how we're going to get high, because now we're sad. We got to get back on the other side of the spectrum. But the way we do it is to shut that off. Shut off all if you have a friend that is always negative, that's not a friend. That friend is coming at a high cost. And if it's a relative, limit the time that you're spending with the person, because you cannot take on all these discomforts in life on a constant basis, because life is full of it. But you need to find people, you need to find things, you need to find hobbies that are not creating more waves of discomfort coming in. Now, remember, there is some good discomfort in life, like effort. Effort is a discomfort, but that's a type 2 discomfort. So take on the type 2 discomforts. But whenever it's, say, a friend that's from a childhood, but every time you talk to them, there's something negative going on, you got to bail them out of jail. These things are adding up against you. And if you tell a friend a dream that you have, hey, I want to be a painter. I kind of want to start painting on the weekends. You're not real good at it. I don't think you should try that. I don't think you should do that. Really find people that know your heart song. Find them and make sure that they're lifting you up and they're filling you with comforts in life and not discomforts.
Yep, and there is a saying to, like, you are the average of 5 peoples that are around you, and having those people. So there are certain individual that, as you mentioned, would be like openly criticizing, and then there's a person who will openly support you. I mean, irrespective of if you're doing something totally crazy. I mean, if you don't know swimming, you don't want to go and swim in a 20 feet deep pool on the very first day. So there should be realistic friends who not only ask you those questions so that you go more deeper into your own self. You realize, okay, if I want to be a painter, what are the skills I need to learn? And if I want to be a painter, I would support you, but these are the steps that you need to take, and you need to be kept accountable, and only then you will end up becoming a successful painter. So, I mean, it might be a coach, but if you have friends around you who can not only motivate you, but ask those key questions that will allow you to have a more deeper understanding of your dream, will lead to more success. And in your last example, you shared about bringing stress within us and how we can manage stress. In your experience, the way you have worked with your clients or your personal self, if I would ask you, what are like top 3 things we can do to reduce or manage stress within our lives, what would those 3 things be?
So the top 3, number 1 is to recognize that there is good discomfort and bad discomfort in life. Remove the bad discomforts. Some of them are going to be harder. You got majors and you got minors. So something minor might be, say, maybe the light switch on the wall is cracked. You go down to Lowe's, you get one screw and you put one screw in it. That's a minor. Okay, but a major might be something like, hey, I got an extra 50 pounds on, right? So, but you're going to still attack these things, and you start with the little ones and you work your way up. That is going to help you out tremendously. Number 2 would be probably, say, pattern interrupt. Pattern interrupt. You've got to interrupt your own patterns. So if you're meeting, if your body is handing you over something that you don't want, so say I'm sad all the time, which I was depressed. I wanted to kill myself ever since I was probably, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years old. It was every day for my entire life up until I was 27 years old. Now I hate that about myself sometimes. And I think like, wow, that sucks that I was that guy. But, you know, I was living a life that I didn't understand, but I suffered from that depression. But here's what I also did. Not only did I not know who I was, I also rewarded the depression. So every time I felt sad, I would go smoke a cigarette. I smoked 2 packs a day. I drank caffeine all day long. and I drank probably 3 to 5 nights a week. And most of the times when I drank until I was blackout drunk. I did not remember where I went to sleep. And then when I wake up, I'm like, whoa, I did not remember going to sleep. So I rewarded that depression every time I felt it. So whenever I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would be anxious and I would be stressed out, I would just lay there in my pity. But here's the problem. I would like go search through the phone and go looking at stuff, right? Try to distract myself from hearing it. So here's what I've done is now I've rewarded myself again for doing something bad. So if you feel something bad and you reward yourself for it, like waking up in the middle of the night, you're going to continue to do it. Either lay there without looking at your phone, don't do anything, and just work through the problems that are in your head. And if your brain is bringing problems up in your head, whenever it becomes daylight tomorrow, get your butt up and work on those problems, because that's the only way you're going to sleep through the night. Or if you want to go ahead and nip this in the butt real fast, here's what I did. Now I'm kind of hardcore. When I make up my mind, I make up my mind. It has to be done. It has to. I was over it. I'm tired. I'm done. I'm moving forward. So I every time I woke up, and it was years. I didn't sleep through the night for years. Every time I woke up, I would start doing push-ups and sit-ups, and I would do like burpees and different types of exercise like that, and jumping jacks. Now that sounds crazy. Like, oh, well, that's going to wake you right up. Yes. The very first 1 or 2 times, it's going to wake you up by getting up and doing the exercise. But that third time, when you wake up in the middle of the night, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be too tired to get up. You can fall right back to sleep. You can wake up, you're like, oh, I'm not doing that again. You'll fall right back to sleep. And if you don't want to do exercise because, say, maybe your physical health isn't there, another thing you can do is go get into a cold shower. And every time your body keeps meeting that discomfort, it's going to stop handing you over that bad thing. And then also I got to give you a third one. I think the third one would be know where you want to go. Have a goal. Have a dream. Have a better life in mind. Know that you deserve that better life, and you got to put in a few little efforts to get that better life. You got to surround yourself with the people that belong in that dream, right? You got to surround yourself with the habits that belong to the dream. Who did you have to become? Does the person in your dream know about finances? If he knows about finances and you don't know about finances, maybe you should start studying a little bit of finances to figure out how to get to the dream. And don't worry, finance is not really that hard. It's actually very, very simple. In fact, we try to overcomplicate everything. But you'll find out once you start studying these things that belong in your dream, there's a lot of simplified programs out there. There's a lot of simplified pieces that are out there. You find those people. And remember, when you find people to learn from, one thing, when you find people to learn from, make sure they have the heart of a teacher. And just because people are, even 2 homeless people on a corner are giving each other advice. Homeless people give each other advice. Everybody's full of advice. Know that the advice is good for you by weighing it against your dream. Does this advice get me closer to my dream? If it gets you closer to your dream, you accept it and you carry it as part of your own philosophy. If it doesn't, you just throw it by the wayside. But you remember, when you're studying these people, that say if they say 9 really good things and then they say 2 bad things that you don't agree with, only take the 9, get rid of the other 2. So just know your dream, know where you're going, and then have a system for removing the discomforts in your life as you move forward.
Your last point, I would just add, like, once you have that dream in your mind and see yourself in the mirror, the person you want to be, and then create a plan backward. And what that person is, and what I need, or what I am today, what step I need to take step by step to reach to that person. And once we have a clearer plan of where we want to go, I think so that is also another way we can reduce stress, reduce the anxiety that comes with uncertainty. And I really appreciate those three tips that you shared with me today and with the audience today, Andrew. And with that, I would like to ask you like a fun fact or superpower that you would like to share with the audience that you have.
So so hopefully you have some ADHD or ADD or OCD listeners out there. I would like to share that fun fact. It was one of the things I struggled with the most was my ADHD. And one of the reasons why I felt so weird is because I was different in the education system growing up. I couldn't read. In fact, I never read a book until I was 27 years old. But the fun fact is I made it through high school by paying other people to do my homework for me. I would work. I was already making money at a very young age. And I already had quite a bit of money at 8 years old, oddly enough, mowing grass around the neighborhood. I'd also buy candy canes. I'd buy a dozen of them for $1. Then I'd go to school and I'd sell them for 25 cents a piece. So I'd make $2 on it. But anyhow, I would pay people to do my schoolwork. I got through school. And then until age 27, I hadn't read a book because my reading was so bad. And it was my ADHD. So I've always felt like it was on the outside looking in. And then when I started reading, and it was a financial book of all things, because that was one discomfort I had in my life. I said, hey, I'm going to remove all the discomforts. That was one of my majors. So I forced myself to sit down and read the book, which ended up being 2 majors, reading a book and tackling finances. And so that changed the entire game, where I started to learn more about people like myself. And I realized if I wanted to be wealthy, all I had to do was do what wealthy people do. Just like if we want to be skinny, we do what skinny people do. And we just emulate what they do and find out what pieces match your life. And there's so much information out there. So I broke all the pieces together and I started studying. When I started studying self-made millionaires, I started finding out that a lot of them are diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, and OCD, which are all linked to the same chromosomal defect. Then as more I started studying, I said, well, I got sidetracked. I started studying OCD people, ADHD, period. All the people that are ADHD. Turns out a lot of your high-rise CEOs, your CEOs, are also ADHD, ADD, and OCD. So here's the cool part. Turns out the thing that some people think might be their biggest disease, in fact, it's called a disorder, attention deficit hyper disorder. I walked around my whole entire life thinking I had a disorder. It turns out I have a superpower. Yes, it's hard to get me to pay attention, but whenever I am focused on something, oh my God, I'm focused on it. So this is 5 years in the making, and you can't see behind me, but behind this green screen here on my wall is tons and tons of books. I am obsessed with gathering information, because the more information I get not only helps me, it helps other people. And that's my passion of helping other people. So I even read things that aren't going to actually help me. I'm just preparing myself if somebody ever asks me a question. Again, like say the lady who was talking about, I hate to use this word and to make it heavy just for a second. She was talking about getting raped. And I never had a personal trauma like that in that sense. So I started studying some things on that. And I wanted to find other stories. So if I ever was in a situation like that, I can pull from a story and I can bring it to here. It's like, hey, here's some resources you should check out. So I just became obsessive studying about anything that can help people. And that's a superpower. So my disorder ended up turning into my superpower, because it gives me hyper focus and it gives me this passion that you see here today with my hands flying around. And that's who I am.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and how you have leveraged that many will think a weakness into something positive and a strength for yourself. That's very impressive, Andrew.
I appreciate that, Bilal. And I'm throw one more thing at the viewers is, when we were talking a little bit ago, it triggered in my head. Don't get too busy for your dreams. Don't get too busy for your dreams. Like we say, we don't have enough time to do that. You know, a lot of us watch 4 to 6 hours of TV a day. You should be spending that time on getting your dreams, and don't get too cheap for your dreams. Okay, these self-development books, or some of these books are only like $5 a piece. Get these books. I was so cheap in the beginning, I didn't want to spend $20 on the first book. But now I'm to the point where I'll spend $5,000 on a seminar. I just went to a Tony Robbins seminar and I spent $5,000 on it. And I'm okay with that. But it was a far loop from the $20, because I didn't see the value in the $20 book. But don't get too cheap for your dreams, and don't get too busy for your dreams. Even if it's like a coach or something that you need, or you need some kind of assistance, guidance from some place, or say if you need to deal with your temper better, seeing a psychiatrist or something like that for dealing with your temper better, because the person in your dream, if he has a better temper, then spend your money and spend your time on the things that are going to get you closer.
Yeah, very important advice, Andrew. And thank you so much for being with us today on the podcast, Andrew.
Thanks for having me, Bilal. I really appreciate it. I love your energy.
Yeah, thank you so much, and it was a pleasure learning from you today. So thank you everyone, and I'm looking forward to having you all on the next episode of SkillRanch Podcast.